Monday, the 16th day of March. You might get lost these days, not knowing what day of the week it is or what month it is, the way things are, because you might not be leaving the area or leaving your home too much these days. As we go through what is the most bizarre time any of us can ever remember in America. I mean, there's nothing we've gone through has even approached this. Not in adult life anyway. I mean, there might have been some. I have to go back and think of the crazy days I've lived through. I remember as a little boy living through the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you're, you know, doing drills under your desk in Catholic school, and going home that night. And I remember had the news on, and they were talking about blockades and all this stuff. And we were days away from war, and everyone was scared. I remember that. You remember the day Kennedy got killed, and how sad the whole country was, and how terrible that whole weekend was as we watched that whole thing and the procession and the funeral and everything unfold that weekend. You think of the turbulent 60s and the assassinations and everything that went on then, the Vietnam War, how divided the country was, Woodstock, all the different things we lived through, revolutions, all different cultural revolutions, all different times, things that changed America, things that changed the country, whether they were racial in nature or they were cultural in nature, whether they had to do with civil rights or they had to do with the Beatles or they had to do with sports or they had to do with a man going to the moon or whatever it might have been. Okay, and then obviously in recent years we've lived through, in the last generation, lived through obviously 9/11, which we had never seen before, anything like that on our soil. And then the things that have happened since. Hurricane that lasted, we were 16 days without power for the hurricane. We thought that was crazy. But nothing has approached this, and nothing has approached this in terms of the uncertainty that has come with it, because we've watched this go from being something that looked like it could become a threat to something that was downplayed enormously by a good part of our government, by a good part of our society, by a good part of our media, as a hoax, as a really something that was being overdone. It was no big deal. I had people telling me, "Oh, this isn't even a big deal. This isn't even as bad as a cold," And now to where we have reached the point where sections of the country are quarantined, people being quarantined in their homes now in parts of the country, and we might be, according to people you hear and listen to, that we might be days away from being quarantined into our area, where we're not going to be allowed to leave our area for X amount of time to try and slow this highly contagious virus. And everything that has come from it, we have watched in recent days, and those of us that live in sports like we do, it has impacted us in a very, very big way, because not only do we not have sports to talk about, which is our business, but nothing to watch, nothing to look forward to, nothing to think about, having great events canceled one after another, and they keep falling. You're seeing race meets now canceled in thoroughbred racing. You're seeing big events canceled. You're seeing golf tournaments now out to June being canceled. You're seeing events being canceled. You saw the president today talk about how we might be back to normal by August. August. I understand he's to the point now where promise something foreign, if you hit something inside it, you'd be happy. Even those that are being conservative have talked about the thrust of this will take 9 weeks. Think about it. 9 weeks will be in Memorial Day weekend. That might be the first time we're back to even a semblance of order. The market today went down 3,000 points. Now, the market was frothy. I'll be the first to admit it, and anybody who plays it knows it, but it went down 3,000 points today. It was actually rallying a little bit in midday, and then as the president spoke, it got worse, it got worse. After last Friday, where he finally gave some information and did something, and it actually rallied 2,000 points to make up for the 2,000 it had lost the day before. Then today it turned around and lost 3,000. I don't know what it did in the. I didn't know what it did post market today. It might have rallied a little bit off the 3,000. I'm not sure. But even if it did, who cares? You're talking about 3,000 points. It went down today. Nasdaq was down 820 points. Think about that. 820 points for the Nasdaq. And I would tell you honestly, and I'm a fairly aggressive investor. I would tell you honestly, don't step in yet. I would think you'd be better off now losing the first 10% of the gains back than you would be to be in early. Because if you're in early right now, you're going to get hit hard. You're going to get hit 20% in a day, 15% in a day. If you would have got out on Friday where it was rallying and then missed today, you would have picked up 15% on a lot of stocks today. That's how much they were down today, 15, 20%. Good stocks, good companies, down 15, 20% today on the day. So it is absolutely crazy what we are going through and what we are heading into for these next 15 days. And they are going to basically shut everybody down for these next 15 days to the point where you're not going to be able to go anywhere. I mean, there's no business you talk to now that isn't in some way changed or moved or impacted in some way, whether they're splitting offices, whether they're utilizing more than one space, or they're rotating who comes in and who doesn't so that they keep people healthy. I mean, it is unbelievable what's going on right now. We have never seen anything like this. I went to the store with my wife over the weekend. There was nothing on the shelves, nothing. I was like, I never saw these like this. I don't go to the store often, but when I did, it's like, there's nothing. There's no water on there. I go in a lot of times to get the water. Like we go through a lot of water, so she doesn't like to carry the water because it's heavy. So she used to tell me to stop and get like 6 waters or something because the kids go through a lot of water. So you always pick those things up. And that whole aisle was empty in the store. So I mean, it is just crazy what is going on right now, and the biggest part of it is we need to make plans. We need to have a plan. We're more comfortable as a country, as a people, when we have a plan. We have an idea of what we're shooting at, what we're looking at. Here's what you have to overcome. If you tell us what we have to overcome, we'll overcome it. But right now, we don't even know what that is. We don't even know what this is going to look like in 2 or 3 weeks. We don't even... I mean, here's the thing in San Francisco. Nearly 7 million San Francisco Bay Area residents are under a shelter-in-place ordinance for the next 3 weeks. Means you don't leave your house. 3 weeks. I guess you can walk to the corner market. I didn't read the whole thing yet, but I guess you can. You got to be able to get food. You got to be able to go to the drugstore. You got to be able to go to to certain stores where you need stuff. Major cities are implementing mass shutdowns. Major cities have shut bars, restaurants, schools, gyms to stop the spread of the disease, which has now killed 76 people. There are at least 4,100 confirmed cases. And the only reason there's only 4,000 confirmed cases, we haven't done any testing yet. When we start doing testing, this is now 179,000 people globally, 7,000 deaths. Okay, and I don't think in our country the deaths are going to be that high. I think they were high in Italy for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have a tremendous number of old people who live with every family has old people living in their homes. And they have they do a tremendous amount of smoking, which have a lot of people who have lung issues because they do a tremendous amount of smoking. So I think that's why they've had such a high incident of death. Plus, I don't think they handled it very well. I don't think our rates will be anywhere near that high. But still, if you're old, you have to protect people who are older. You really do. They're telling you now to avoid groups of 10 or more. Italy's death toll, amazingly, the 7,000 people that have been that have died in the world, 2,000 of them in Italy. All residents are ordered to shelter at home in 6 counties in San Francisco. Travel must be limited to only essential needs in the following counties: Alameda, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara counties. That is unbelievable. Changing our routine is absolutely necessary to slow the spread of this pandemic. And they say it is highly, highly, highly contagious. As that's the thing about it that is the most intense, is it is incredibly, supposedly, from what I've read, incredibly contagious. So we're in this place now where our life has been turned upside down. Our economic world has been, financial world has been completely tossed upside down. The sporting world has been thrown upside down. Our lifestyle has been completely, really just stopped cold. And I have to give us, as a people, I give everybody credit. I think everybody's done a pretty good job. I mean, normally we don't listen real well as a group. We all think, it's for the other guy. But I think we actually are listening. I think people actually are listening. I think people are concerned. I think they're worried. I think they're also worried about the economy, and they should be. And people are probably worried about their jobs, and they should be. A lot of small businesses are going to fail. I mean, if you're in the airline business, you're in the hotel business, you're in the entertainment business, you're in the casino business, you're in the cruise ship business. I mean, we could go through a whole summer where there's no travel. Nobody goes on vacation. Think of all the summer resorts. How about the camps? My kids go to camp, and some of the camps said, we're going to be open. Well, right now you are, but who knows in a month or two if you're going to be open. So, on top of that, you try to see if you can maintain a normalcy as much as humanly possible, and it's not easy. I mean, if you have something to do around the house, good time to do it. If you're handy around the house, good time to, start a project. Or clean the garage, or, go out and work in the garden, get the golf clubs out. One place you can go is the golf course, and it's supposed to be warmer later in the week. Golf course is already open. That's one place we can all go, is to the golf course. It's out in the fresh air. It's okay. Go out there, give us something to do a couple hours a day. So, I mean, that's really where we are, in a very, very strange place. We know that the changes that are going to be made to the draft, we know that the NFL is going to start with modified exceptions, but open their season as expected. We know what that means, okay? We know that you're going to have a lot of football news. We'll do that tomorrow. The big news over the weekend was that Rick Pitino is coming back and coaching Iona. You knew some people would like that. You knew some people wouldn't like that. He's a controversial figure, as we know. Tim Cluse did a great job there. He had to step down for health reasons, and we send him our best. I've been in touch with him more than once. We wish him well. We talked about it the other day. He obviously did a wonderful job there. And it would take someone very special to achieve what he achieved there. Year after year after year, what he did there was remarkable. And that kind of league, to do what he did, with the style they played, with what he did, was enormous. And they found someone who actually can do that, because there's nobody who would be better suited to coach a team, especially at that level, and to get those kind of players, because nobody develops players better than Pitino does. And nobody is better with that kind of underdog team than Pitino is. Pitino's a great college coach. Whether you like him, don't like him, I don't care about that. The bottom line is the guy's a great college coach. And as I tweeted the other day, it is true that we have actually went in on a couple of horses together. He's a horse owner, I'm a horse owner. We actually went in on a couple of horses together this year with another mutual friend of ours, Leon Slider from Casamigos Tequila. So the three of us have a couple of 2-year-olds together, one named Full Court Press. We have a filly together, and we have a 2-year-old together, who's a nice 2-year-old named Full Court Press. So we do have mutual horses together. I haven't talked to Rick recently. He's going to be on the show today. We're going to put him up in a minute, as a matter of fact. He's been in Greece. He's been coaching over there. I haven't talked to him that much. I did talk to him last spring when we bought the horses. I haven't talked to him since then. I had him in for an hour, if you remember, last year. And I told you then he would come back and coach again because coaches coach. And Rick is lost if he can't coach. He's a fish out of water if he can't coach. So I never didn't think he would coach again. I always expect coaches to coach again, unless health gets into it or some other thing gets into it. I always thought he would coach again. And you know what? He should coach. He's a coach. So there'll be those that are, going to have a big problem with him coaching there and stuff like that. But you know what? I think it makes the product better. No one's going to completely change college sports. No one. Not one incident, not one coach, not one area, not one school. It's going to completely change a system that needs to be completely overhauled. But as far as whether or not it'll be successful, that you know. So we got all this craziness right now going on. We got chaos in the stock market, boredom just about everywhere else, cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. Now the cancellations are extending all the way out to June. I think they're about to cancel the U.S. Open in golf. I mean, so it is just I'm really starting to wonder about Saratoga. I didn't really think that far. Well, I've kind of thought this was going to be April and May. Now you're starting to think this could go June, July. Imagine 4 months of this. Hard to think about 3 weeks of this, no less 4 months of this. But that's where we are. That's the boat we're all in. Hey, take a deep breath. Relax. No matter what issues, whether it's financial, whether it's Wall Street, whether it's work, whatever it may be, take a deep breath and just realize we're all going to get through it together. That's it. Okay? We're one day closer to getting through it, the way you look at it. Every day we're one day closer. Right now, that's all you can do because this is going to take a while. We have not seen the worst of this yet, and hopefully we're on top of the worst of it. Hopefully. It's become a strange, strange time. We'll come back with Rick Pitino right after this. They just canceled the Keeneland meet today, so we were going to run a couple of horses there, but now everything's crazy. We just don't know where to. I'm not sure that they know even where they're going to send the horses now because they're canceling all the meets now. It's living right now. I'm sure you were out of the country recently, right? Did you just come back in the country?
I just got back 2 days ago.
Living in this first from where you were, and of course we're talking with Rick Pitino, folks, who just took over will take over as the coach at Iona. You were coaching in Greece. How was Greece compared to what we're going through here?
Well, it was just starting to develop into closing. The Prime Minister was doing an outstanding job. There was about 40 cases. Then it went to 80. Then they shut down all the bars, all the restaurants, all the public places, just as I was leaving.
Yeah,
so they were probably about a week ahead of us.
Gotcha. So I mean, we're seeing as the world goes through this day by day, and we're watching as we've never lived through any. I mean, can you imagine? As you prepared for March your whole life, can you imagine an NCAA tournament not being played? I mean, can you imagine a Masters not being played or the Kentucky Derby not being contested? It's hard to fathom what's going on right now. It really is.
It is, and it's your heart breaks for those who not only catch the virus, but for those out of work. And we've never experienced anything like this before. And I think we're getting a grip on it now. You have to somehow look at the positives, and maybe it will unite this country because we've been ununited in so many ways politically, and maybe all the people can lend a helping hand to those in need and just do something to at least stifle the growth of this dreaded virus. And, you don't know what to believe out of China, whether it is somewhat going away or subsiding somewhat. You just don't know what to believe out of there.
Aptly put. And again, I think we have a couple of weeks here where it's just going to get worse, and we can all do whatever we can do in our neighborhoods to help, because that's where we're going to be spending all our time and wait this thing out. But we're talking with Rick Pitino, of course, the news this weekend that I got a call on Friday, and I had been in touch with Timmy a couple times during the year. He's been very private about his illness. And he was always a big part of the show because he and my brother, the Klus brothers and my brother played basketball together, my younger brother, so I've known them forever. And he did a great job at Iona, as you know. He ran a great style, did a great job. And then I knew he was stepping down. Then I got a call that you were going to be a candidate. And I said, wow, I hadn't thought of that, but it makes plenty of sense. How did it start? What happened? Take me through what happened.
Well, as you know, Tim Klus did a fabulous job at Iona, not only at Iona, but at St.
Everywhere.
Mary's Manhasset.
Everywhere, yeah, everywhere.
He built a dynamite program.
Yep.
And, I've been in touch with him. He obviously did a phenomenal job here. And, he's had a difficult life with his brothers.
Sure has.
Now his sister, and now himself.
Yep.
And our prayers are with him.
Absolutely. Great guy.
Here's what happened with me. I didn't ever expected to return to college basketball. And then suddenly, after the Southern District in New York, after people went on trial, and one witness after another witness got up on the witness stand and said, I had no knowledge, that I was not part of anything. And then suddenly colleges started calling me again. And one in particular, I had this president of Transylvania, Division III school in Lexington, Kentucky, call me up after I was fired from Louisville. He said, Coach, you were nice enough to leave me and my wife and I tickets to a couple of games. Is there any way I can call a college for you? This is when I was let go for Louisville. I'd be glad to do it from president to president. And I said, well, that's so nice of you, but I don't believe at this time it's going to work, but I really appreciate that. He was friends with my business partner. I have two business partners, Jamal Mashburn, who you know, and
right.
Called by the name of Rick Avar. Rick Avar played at Transylvania, and they became friends. And then suddenly, when I was speaking to him, I said, Seamus, you don't sound like you're from Kentucky or the South. Where are you from? He started laughing. He said, the Bronx. And I went back to Greece, and then all of a sudden, I got a phone call from Rick Avar that Seamus would like to speak with me. He's now the athletic director at Iona College.
How wild is
that? So that was the genesis of the whole thing, and he knew all about me from personally, professionally, knew my wife. His wife sat next to my wife at games, and so he said that unfortunately we're going through a tough time, and Tim is sick, and he's going through some tough times. This was like the tail end of February, and I said, oh, that makes me so sad. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, why don't you let's see what happens with Tim. And he said, no, Tim is not going to be able to coach anymore. And so they worked everything out with Tim. He came to me and said, would you take the job? And I got a contract, and it was hysterical because it was probably 2 pages. I was used to like 16 pages. And then I looked at the buyout, and I called him back. I said, is this serious? And he said, yes. I said, okay, let me think about it. And I thought about it, and I thought it would be an unbelievable way to end your career, going back to New York. I remember Dick Vitale, when I called him, telling me that Jim Valvano said the best years of his life were at Iona College. And I know the best 2 years of my life in coaching out of 30-plus years were Providence College. So I wanted to go to a small Catholic school. It was perfect. Tim did a phenomenal job, and I'm hoping to build on that. And let's see where it goes.
It's funny you mentioned that. We're talking with Rick Pitino. When St. John's opened last year, I thought of it, but it was probably too early. And, there was so much going on. But I go back to You mentioned Valvano at Iona. I remember those teams with Rulin and Vickers and those guys and his years there. I knew him when he was there. I knew him before he was there. I knew when he was at Bucknell. So, I mean, I knew him going back that far. And I remember your teams well. You know, people might not. It's a long time ago. But, I mean, you did an incredible job at Providence. Billy Donovan, who obviously has gone on to be this, you know, tremendous coach in his own right. But, you know, the whole thing, taking that Providence team, that unlikely team to the Final Four, you know, you had a great team at Kentucky. It was an all-time team. There's no question. But you probably never did a better job than you ever did at Providence. I mean, Providence was an amazing job with a bunch of kids who were underdogs, who, you know, played really hard, who you got into great shape, who you developed players. You like to develop players. Probably was a perfect team for you, and that's probably what you'll use as your model, right?
Yeah, because, you know, they were dead last place for 7 straight years since the inception of the Big East. It was a great group of guys, and I got very lucky because the three-point line came into play. Mm-hmm. And the first 5 Big East games, Mike, the opponents that I played against didn't take more than 5 threes in a game. And I was taking 18 to 22 per game. So I got very lucky. We led the nation in three-point shooting. That was the first year it was utilized. And it was great. To this day, I'll never forget those 2 years. And now I get to relive, you know, no facilities at Providence, just a gym, just the ball. And now you go to Iona, same type of feeling. I wanted a small Catholic school and to end my career, and it just happened. And it worked out great.
And coming back home too. So I mean, you know, I know you. Yeah. You know, you know the area so well. You own places. You have places to live around here. You got golf courses around here. You got everything right in your backyard. It is your backyard. So it's like coming home.
Yep, I live in Manhattan. I'm a member of Wingfoot, 10 minutes away. My son lives in Harrison, 10 minutes away. I have probably 30, 40 friends that will buy season tickets, and it is awesome. And it's also because of what Tim has done. And think about this, Mike. Every coach that's coached there, from Jimmy Valvano to Timmy Welsh to Kevin Willard, Tim Cluse, every one of them has had great success. And every one of them has loved it. And so it's very exciting for me because I went through 2.5 years of coaching in another country. I've been blackballed out of the business, rightfully so, by the way, because until that, I shouldn't say blackballed. I've been kept out of the business. Because that trial, they took the time with the trial, and not to the trial. St. John's couldn't take a chance at me. Nobody could take a chance until that trial. And once the trial happened, and everybody, one witness after another, got up from Adidas to the father and said Rick Pitino knew nothing about it. Was I an open candidate? So it took a while, but I was very happy to be in Greece. I learned an awful lot about a different brand of basketball, which will help me going forward. And coaching pro ball in the EuroLeague was an exciting experience.
You can bring a lot of will it help you? Will you go find players over there? And, you know, a lot of schools do that, especially smaller mid-majors. If you want to call Iona a mid-major, they're kind of a higher level mid-major, but a mid-major. You know, you can bring kids in. Will you be at an advantage having been over there where you'll locate some kids who can come over here and help you?
Well, there's one reason why Gonzaga has been great throughout the years, and that's because of the foreign talent that they get. And certainly, Turkey has 3 teams in the EuroLeague. I'm going to go into Serbia, go into Turkey, and really, really hit the foreign market hard. We've got to bring in 7 players this year, Mike. We only have about 4 guys coming back.
Right.
We got to bring in 7 players. You know, the program is not where Tim Cluse had it, and they are going to pass a rule that allows a young man to transfer and play right away.
Right, because of this year, you're going to gain a year of eligibility for this year, right? You're allowed to, because This crazy year, kids are going to get to come back. Because, you know, you think about a team.
No, I'm talking about they don't have to sit out anymore.
Oh, no, I know that, too. But also, I didn't know if you'd had any kids who were seniors who would get a chance to get another year. They're talking about giving kids another year of eligibility, too.
Yeah, I think the seniors in the program here have to move on.
Oh, okay.
You know, they did a good job, but they need to move on.
So you're going to need 7 new players next year. So you're going to go, you can scour and go find some kids. What was it like day in and day out in the league you were in? What level of basketball was the league you were in that you were coaching in?
It's like playing with second-round draft choices. Like I had Wesley Johnson from Syracuse, and I had Tyrese Rice from Boston College, who was a EuroLeague Player of the Year. I had Nick Kalathis, who's a great player from Florida. I had a young man from Texas, young man from Wake Forest. It would be like Division II draft choices who are the ages between 27 and 35, and not Division II. Guys who were drafted in the second round.
Second round
draft choices.
Okay.
Draft choices who are now 27 and 35, older, wiser, more humble. Great brand of basketball. And traveling to Moscow, Berlin, Germany obviously has 2 teams. Spain has 3 teams. Awesome experience in Madrid, Barcelona, the Gran Canarias last year. Moscow, Istanbul, Lithuania, Serbia. And the crowds were incredible.
Did you coach your typical style, or did you make changes in the way you coached?
Totally different. Like if I was coaching the next pro team, there was no pressing. There was some full court pickup, not much. More half court basketball, more motion offenses, just great offenses. Really learned a lot about motion basketball within a framework of 24 seconds.
How about the idea of, we're talking about Rick Pitino, there's nobody who has been better at developing kids who might be, guys who can get better, who might not be stars, who you were always very good at developing kids. I know you worked very hard at that. You used to work them very hard during the days. I know some of the stuff you use, the regimen you use with that stuff. That's always been a great strength of yours. That's something I'm sure you're going to utilize now going forward with this as you build this program, right?
Yeah, but I had a different formula than, say, Duke or Kentucky. Gorky Zhang was ranked 90th in the country. Terry Rozier was ranked 78th in the country. Donovan Mitchell was ranked 55th in the country. Russ Smith wasn't even ranked. So I went after guys with a chip on their shoulder who thought they were being passed by, who had something to prove. They were very athletic. Montrezl Harrell, perfect example. He was ranked 90th in the country. Guys like that who had athletic ability, were hungry to prove everybody wrong. And I'm going to try to do the same thing at Iona. Get after hungry guys who have something to prove. They're really into player development, really into getting their offenses better. And I think that formula has worked throughout my career, and I'm going to certainly try it again at Iona.
You spent a lot of time at the top of the profession. You're a Hall of Fame coach. You've had an incredible career. You've been at the top the whole time. No matter where you went, you've always been at the top of the sport, always recognized at the top of the sport. What has been the biggest difference, or what changed the most in your life in the last couple of years since you left Louisville?
Well, I think, obviously I left for Greece a very bitter person, bitter at my assistant coaches for betraying me, bitter at the school that fired me the way they did. And today, 2.5 years later, I forgive my assistant coaches because we grew up and you grew up the same way I did, in going to Catholic schools, and we were taught to forgive, but being Italian, we never forgive. and now, 2.5 years later, I forgive those guys that betrayed my principles. I totally agree with the University of Louisville firing me. Even though I didn't, I know I was totally. They interviewed 80 different people, and the 80 people said the same thing. He had no knowledge of anything going on, but I was the leader of the team, leader of the business, and I had to take responsibility for people doing wrong. So I left that bitterness in Greece, left it behind me, and I'm looking forward in a very positive way at taking on a great challenge at Iona.
Would you rather coach, if you had an opportunity, would you have rather coached on the college level or coached on the NBA level if you had both opportunities?
I think I get more out of building a Billy Donovan or developing a Jeff Van Gundy, who was my first graduate assistant at Providence, or developing a Kevin Willard, Mick Cronin, Tubby Smith, Steve Masiello, 30 coaches that have gone on to I coached Brett Brown in the Sixers. I coached Frank Vogel, was my manager at Kentucky at the Lakers. I coached Rick Carlisle at the Knicks. I coached, obviously, Billy. I just think I get such a great thrill out of developing coaches, developing guys, players into, and not only the pros, even if they have to go to Europe, but just developing people. To me, that's the ultimate. And right now at my age, coaching at Iona is a perfect way to go out, for a coach, just developing young men, maybe playing in the EuroLeague, maybe playing in the Euro Cup, maybe getting a few to the NBA, maybe building young men into business people. I have so many guys out there on Wall Street that I coached that I'm very proud of. An article yesterday about Jack Twyman's son, who had a successful business career, and I was so proud of him. So just trying to build young people into being solid citizens, solid people with a work ethic that is second to none in their lives.
What are you still? I mean, I know you still love coaching. I mean, listen, when you left my studio that day, I told everyone when you left, you'll coach again. And you said you wouldn't, but I said he'll coach again because you know what? That's what you do. You're a coach. I mean, that's a void you can't fill. And you know, John Madden told me a long time ago, years ago, he said, I found something else to do. If you can't find something else to do, you're always going to come back to coach because there's nothing that else fills that void. None of you guys can fill the void. It's what you do. You coach. I mean, I broadcast. You coach. I mean, that's what you do. You do what you do, and that's who you are. You're a coach. I mean, so that's why I always thought you'd come back and coach again because that's what you do. That's how you express yourself.
Well, think of it, Mike. How many people who have never coached in the EuroLeague, never been to Greece, would pick up on Christmas Day and take a flight to Greece, not knowing anybody, not knowing the team, not knowing the ownership,
not many,
anything, and just coach.
Not many.
And so I did that, and it was a unique experience. But you're right. The last time we spoke, I was a bruised and hurt man, bitter and really dejected over what happened. But today, I'm very confident, positive in my abilities as a teacher and a coach, and so looking forward to getting back at it again. And you have to learn along the way. You learn every step along the way. And my son, I've said this over and over. My son gave me the greatest piece of advice after I wrote the book. He said, "Dad, get over it. You're not going to convince those who don't want to believe that you're innocent. You just have to understand the people you've coached and the people you mentored as assistant coaches. They're the ones who know the truth. Don't try to convince anybody else
He's right.
with your life."
He's right.
Yep.
He's very right because you're not going to convince other people. You know what? You can't even bother. You can't worry about everybody else. You just got to live your life. No. That's all you can do. And if they don't want to believe it, they don't want to believe it. That's all. You can't worry about it. And listen, part of being successful is you're going to get criticized. That's part of the deal. Okay, that's no matter what the walk of life is. That's the way it goes. People are going to be out there and they're going to always take shots. You just have to understand that, and you just don't let it bother you. Just go forward. That's basically it. So I mean, I think it's a fun. It's funny. They're used to an up-tempo style, and as you said, they're used to winning. I mean, Timmy, he won every year there. I mean, you could see the void this year without him. I mean, they were like fish out of water without him this year because every year he won. Every year, no matter who the kids were, he won. He won 25 games. He went to the NCAA tournament. He did a great job. And you're one of the few guys who could walk in there and fill his shoes.
Yeah, but he did it with class. I texted with him, and he had a fun style. He was a great teacher.
Yep.
He was a terrific person. Everybody loved him, and it goes back to all those guys. Every single guy that coaches at Iona loves the place.
Yeah, it's true. It's because it's an old basketball school. It's an old-time basketball school. As you said, they like basketball, and it's a school with a great tradition. Going back to Richie Guerin and whoever, it's got a great tradition of basketball. It always has, and they've always been very successful. They always have, and it's a good spot to be in. It's a good league. It's a very competitive league, and you get to play here too. You get to play in New York, which makes it a lot of fun because you know what? In New York, everyone gets noticed. All you got to do is win, and everybody gets noticed, and you're going to get noticed anyway. I mean, that's just the way it is. So it's a good place to come home to. It really is.
Yep, no doubt.
And you're not that far from Saratoga either. Although you're never too far from Saratoga anyway. But
I haven't lost any money in a while, so now I get to do that again.
Well, listen. Hopefully there is a Saratoga to go to this summer. We can see a couple of our 2-year-olds run up there this year because the way things are going, I hope they have a meet by the time we get the summer going. How will that impact you getting started? I mean, have you thought about that yet? How this will all impact just getting yourself together and getting started on this journey here?
Well, think about this. I'm going to have to sign 7 players without ever any of them visiting campus.
Wow.
So, and I did that in Louisville.
Have you hired a staff already? Have you got a staff?
I've hired two coaches so far, but they're going through the typical human resources and going through that thing this week. And by the end of next week, I'll have my whole staff complete.
Okay.
And so it's going to be difficult to do, but I think I can do it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying they're interested. Now I've got to watch film on them and go to work on that as well, and make sure you take the right players, the right people.
So you got guys calling you up, sending you players already. So you have enough guys out there. I mean, you have guys, as you said, you got guys everywhere in America who you coached, whether they're players or assistants or whatever, and who are head coaches now, who are all over the world. I mean, you have coaches all over the world. So I mean, you got guys everywhere.
Yeah, I do think that's a big number to have to fill, but I actually don't think we'll have a problem filling it. It just got to make sure we do the right evaluating, because you make one or two mistakes evaluating it really, really hurts you.
Will you play the typical Patino style of college ball? Will you be the typical Patino team?
No question about it. I missed it. It was like my best friend, and we're going to get back to playing an up-tempo style. The good thing is the Iona people are used to basketball the same way I play, and defense will be a little different.
They weren't as good defensively as you usually are, but they were really good offensively. They just weren't that good defensively, but they were very good offensively every year. Every year they were. They had very good guards.
Well, great fast breaks.
Yep.
And, he's a tremendous coach.
And so you got a staff, and have you zeroed in on your first player without telling us who he is? Have you zeroed in on a player yet, or you haven't signed one yet?
I've got about 7 players right now that would love to come.
Okay.
And we're just looking at a lot of film and trying to see, who fits. Because I don't know that there's about 3 or 4 players coming back on that team.
Right.
And I never watched Iona play because they're not on TV. I watched all Big Ten games.
Yeah, I never saw them play. They were bad this year, so I never saw them play this year. They weren't, when Timmy wasn't there, they just weren't very good. They won 12 games. They weren't a very good team this year.
No, but it was like when I was at Kentucky. They were a terrible team when I first got there. And I got one player, Jamal Mashburn, and it turned around everything automatically. So if I can get one player like that, and then build around that one player, great things can happen right away.
And Mashburn's has become this enormously successful businessman, right? I mean, he's got businesses everywhere, right?
I don't think I told you this, Mike, but Jamal Mashburn and Rick Avar, the other person, we've been in business together for 35 years together.
All these years, right? And he's been really successful, hasn't he?
Yep. We have a company called MAP, which stands for Mashburn, Avar, and Patino.
Right.
I'm now they own 75 to 100 Papa John pizzas. They own a waste management company. They own 3 Lexus dealerships, a Toyota dealership. They own about 4 other entities. I'm in on a limited basis. I'm basically Jamal and Rick. They want to conquer the world on business, and I'm a little bit older, and I said, look, take me out of most of that. But I'm in business with them for over 35 years, so it's been exciting. Jamal's a great businessman. He should be the Junior Bridgman, and Jamal Mashburn should be the poster child for NBA players, what they should do in life outside of basketball.
That's amazing. It really is. I mean, that is, because I know he's been very successful. You see some of these players, I mean, that's probably, everyone knows the ones who go on to be basketball stars, but the ones that you coach who no one knows about, who go on to have really good lives or become very successful businessmen or doctors or whatever they went on to become, those are the guys that you probably got a million of those that you keep in touch with that people don't even know about or think about, right?
Yeah. They own a uniform business as well. And interesting enough, Jamal called me one day and said, Coach, we're going to make a move. You're going to be president of the Clippers. We're going after the Clippers. I said, no, Jamal, let's not do that. The Clippers they're worth about $400 or $500 million. Let's not overpay. No, Coach, we're going to go to like $700-800 million. I have a person from China going to help back. I said, Mesh, don't do that. That team is not worth $700-800 million. He called me back the next day and he said, Coach, good news and bad news. I said, please, Jamal, don't tell me we own the Clippers. He said, no, we were like 4th choice. It went for $2 billion.
Yeah, Ballmer blew everybody out of the water. How about that? Would own that? Hey, listen, give him credit. That's amazing. You hear some of these players with some of the stuff they accomplish. It's unbelievable. It really is. It's a different time. It really is. So it's funny. You've come out the other side of college basketball, but the game's taken such a hit now, Rick. What would you do to change if you could? From your experiences, what would you change that's reasonable? We all know you can't change everything about the sport. You just got to make some real smart, common sense rules that everyone can live with. What's the thing that has to change for it to get better as far as the whole dealing with? I mean, Beeline gets out because he can't stand what goes on with players and recruiting. And then he goes to the pros. He doesn't like it there either. So he'll probably come back to college. But they got sick of the whole process. All these guys are sick of the process. We all know it. It's a bad process. What can change that's reasonable without it having to be, like it's never going to change where it doesn't exist. We all know that. It's a big time profession. It's a big time sport. But what can happen that's reasonable that can get the sport back under control?
Well, 30 years ago when I first broke in and when I was a coach at BU, I would say that there was less than 8%, 10% cheating going on. Then at that time, there was only the five-star basketball camp where all the coaches got together to evaluate players. There was no AAU basketball. Then it goes to Sonny Vaccaro,
right,
who ran the camps. Five-star was now in the background. Then it goes to AAU basketball. Now the shoe companies control the AAU programs. Agents are involved. Now the shoe companies have infiltrated every university and pay them $200 to $300 million in the Power Five conferences. So anytime you have that type of money being involved with each program, about 10% of those entities could be corrupt at a very high scale. And you heard about the 50,000, 75,000, 100,000. So the best thing that universities can do is share the wealth, cut the rule book in half and say, okay, let the players have their own shoe deals. Oh, they say, no, you can't do that because the colleges have their own deals. Well, get away from that. When it runs out, let the players have their own shoe deals. Let them have their own identity. Let them go to the Olympic model and let them utilize their names. Let them do commercials. And you may say, well, then the rich get richer. Well, that's the way it is.
There's no way around that anyway. There's no. You're right.
You stop the cheating. Stop the cheating. If I'm an Alabama football player and I can do a commercial and
right.
I can sell my name and sell my rights, I'm not going to be in a rush to get to the pros because I'll be able to give money to my families and help them out in life and let them do the Olympic model. That's the best way to do it because you're going to see this. The G League is going to become, where you can make 150, 200,000, and they'll kill college basketball unless you do something about it. Now, I don't have all the answers,
right?
Certainly, but I think an athlete should have the right to sell his name because any other student has that right.
When you have something that big and that much money surrounding a sport like you do now in big-time college basketball or football, it is very hard to control. There's no way around it. It's just that there's so much money around. There's so much money around these sports now that it's going to infiltrate and it's going to make it that much tougher. So anything you can do that makes it transparent is going to help. I agree with you. And the players have reached the point where they should get paid. There's no question.
You have people caught on wiretap saying, well, we'll give them this much money and give this much money and this much money. Well, if they wouldn't have to stoop to those ugly levels if the players had a right to go out and have a shoe contract themselves, sell their name, sell their likeness, that type of underhanded stuff wouldn't go on.
It makes sense. It does, I tell you. But you're not going to have to worry about those guys. They're not going to go to Iona anyway. So, that's it. Not the start anyway. So, they might leave there that way. But, that's what. But that's what the idea is. Now you got to go find a little point guard and make him into a star. That's what That's what we'll watch happen. You got to go find a little guy or find somebody in the backcourt and turn him into a new star in New York. That's what. Hey, New York needs some good basketball right now. So, it'll be fun to watch.
Well, I'm so looking forward to it, Mike. I feel like I'm 27 again, and
good.
I wish I was, but I feel like I am.
We all wish we were. So, but good.
Yeah.
You know what? Listen, I'm glad you're back. Good for you. And hopefully I will see you along the way, and we'll get to see our horses run in Saratoga this summer. So I hope to see you up there, and hopefully there'll be a Saratoga. So stay well, stay healthy. We'll see you along the way, okay?
Thanks, Mike.
Take care, Rick.
of yourself.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Rick Pitino, back after this.
Get to the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM, WFAN.
All right, we hit the fan at 6 o'clock, obviously radio.com. Brought to you, of course, by Casamigos Tequila, the folks who bring you that very special product, brought to you by those who drink it. And you know what? I was just chatting, as those of you that were on radio.com know. If you were listening on the fan, you might not be aware of it, but on radio.com, you understand. I was just chatting with Rick Pitino on for the last 45 minutes or so on radio.com. And he and I have a partnership along with the guy who runs Casamigos Tequila, Lee Einslide. We have a couple of horses together, including one called Full Court Press, and Patino's going to bring that style to Iona, and that's what we were chatting about. As he said, he had to sign 7 players, and he has already put together a staff, and he's ready to go, and he's ready to bring that style. They're used to running and gunning at Iona with Timmy Cluse, who Rick said he had spoken to also. And I've been in touch with him, and we send our best to him, obviously. He's gone through a lot, and we hope he's, we send our prayers, and we hope that he gets better real soon and is getting better. But now Rick's going to take over at Iona for Tim, who did a brilliant job. I mean, just a brilliant job over the decade he was there. I mean, he became a fixture in the NCAA tournament. 25 wins every year. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. You could see how much Iona missed him this year. And now Rick will bring his Patino ball, and that means pressing and threes and running up and down the floor. And he said he had to go get 7 players to bring into the program, and he's been out looking for players now as we speak. And obviously everyone talking about all the other stuff that's going on right now as we watch business get curtailed in every part of the country, in every business in the country. Doesn't matter what business you're in, you've been impacted in some way, and will probably be impacted in more, and there's a good chance that they will even restrict our travel and restrict our movement even more in the weeks to come here, as the next couple of weeks seem to be critical. The cases are up to, every day the number's going to go up and up and up. It's now 4,300 and counting across the country. It's going to continue to go up each day as we continue to intensify the testing. It's going to go up, by big numbers each and every day. I don't know what this number is in this country going to look like. Who knows? Hopefully we can curtail this. But clearly the country, especially the stock market, when Trump comes out to do a press conference with his group at 20 after 3, as he did on Friday, and moved the market positively. Today, he moved the market negatively because they did not like what they heard. And what they heard him say was, he was asked, which was probably he downplayed it early and tried to soft sell it early. And I can understand that. You don't want to be alarmist. Okay? And listen, you're in his position. No matter what you do, positively or negative, you're going to get knocked. You're going to own this. I mean, it's not fair. It's not something that, he started. But as a president, you're going to own whatever happens while you're president. So whatever gets dumped in your lap, how you deal with it, how it ends up is your legacy. Whether you can control it or not, whether it's within your control or not, it still becomes part of your legacy, good or bad. And how this is handled between now and Labor Day will probably go a very long way to decide the election. If it is a nightmare, it'll be very difficult for him to get reelected. If it is a sweeping success and things turn out much better than anybody could have hoped for, it'll be a positive for him. And he has to understand that. That's going to be part of the deal, because that's the way this works. I mean, a lot of it is what you're thrust into. As presidents, a lot of times your history, your legacy is not part of anything you did. It's what was thrust on you, what you were in charge of, what happened on your watch. And that's what this is going to obviously impact him greatly. There's no way around that. And I'm sure that's frustrating at times, and he's got to deal with it and do the best job that he can possibly do. But today he came out and said, well, we hope to be coming out the other side of this by July or August. And I think people were like, whoa, July and August? It's the first time we heard that. You know, the last couple of days we've been hearing about, well, it could peak around the last week in April. And you've heard a couple of experts with that. It could, a couple of guys I've listened to daily who I thought were pretty smart about it, doctors on TV, could peak the last week in April, and then we could start to see positive results and maybe be out of it by Memorial Day. I'd say 9 weeks it could run its course. You're saying, wow, that's a long time, but all right. And then today to have him come out with, well, July, August. Whoa, July or August. There goes summer. And let's be honest. People in baseball have been throwing around May 1st as a date. I don't see it. And I don't see them coming back and playing in empty stadiums now. I don't think that works. I don't think it works. I just don't think – you still have to bring a lot of people back to run the ballparks. You still have to do a lot of different things. So you're still going to have to congregate. It's just not going to work. I mean, the other sports, who knows what they're going to do unless they're going to play through the summer. I mean, unless the winter sports are going to – I think they can come back and eventually – have some playoff runs, even if they downsize their playoff models. So let's say they decided to come back and held a week of camp in both the winter sports to get themselves ready. 7 to 10 days to get themselves ready. And then you start the playoffs on a down, forget the regular season, it's over. And then you take the teams that qualify for the playoffs and downsize the scale of the playoffs, where you start with best of threes and then go maybe best of fives and then finish up with a best of seven and get out of there. At least you crown a champion, get some TV revenue, and put a finish on your season. That might work. Other than that, I mean, I don't see them taking it into September because they'll kill next year. So baseball is going to be able to have a season. I don't know how many games, but they'll be able to have a season. Even if they have a 100-game season or 120-game season, they can still have a season. Football obviously got very lucky here with this, or we think they did anyway. I mean, they're going to have to do things differently right now in free agency and in the draft, but they're going to have free agency. They're going to have the draft. They're going to open their season. We know that. They're going to curtail a lot of stuff. They're going to do it differently, but they are going to still have the opening of a season. They still are a long way from they can forget their OTAs and forget their mini camps and just get ready for training camp. And hopefully they can start on time in late July, early August, and go from there and have a regular season. We'll see if that's the case. So we are to that point. We are canceling race meets. We are canceling golf tournaments. We have canceled everything. We know that there are events that are going to try and be run. They're going to try and run, even if they run the Belmont first and then run the Preakness, then run the Derby over the summer. They could do that and run them in inverse order. They can get that done in racing. The Masters could go Labor Day weekend, or go sometime in October if it had to, or go sometime in September. So the Masters will get it. They'll have a date. They'll play sometime this year because they're the Masters. They can launch themselves on any date they want, as long as they get the golf to get the majors spaced out. They can do that. We might have majors played this year, September, October, November, December. Who knows? In different locales around the country. Who knows? You never know. We'll have to wait and see how that's played out. But they can still do that and have a golf season. Certain seasons it can work. They can reschedule. You can reschedule in horse racing. You can reschedule in golf. It's harder to do in these other sports. Much harder to do, especially the winter sports that are really up against it right now. Obviously, the events like college basketball have already lost their season. You can't make up an NCAA tournament. There's nothing they can do about it. I mean, you can't make up all the sports that all the spring athletes have lost in high school and in college. And, hey, For the seniors, you feel bad. For the teams that made the tournament, you feel bad. The teams that had a special season and qualified, you feel bad. But there's not much you can do. I mean, it is an extremely strange time we live in now. And I opened up the 5o'clockhourradio.com with this, and it really rings true to me. I think of the things now that I've lived through, the things that that are emblazoned in your memory, whether it's the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I remember the nuns teaching you how to put your head under your desk, the idea of fallout shelters, coming home that night when the news was on and everyone was worried about blockades and the war was in the air and everything like that. I remember seeing the newspaper, blockade was across the top of the page. Right after that, the Kennedy assassination and how that just horrified the nation, crushed the nation over that weekend in November of '63. The assassinations of '68, the Vietnam War, how divided the country was, the burning of the cities in this country during the race riots of the late '60s. Recently, 9/11, the hurricanes, Hurricane Sandy, 16 days we had no power. I think of things like that. But all of them, and some of them were devastating. 9/11 was something like we never lived through before. But it was so different than this. This has just intensified in its motion and how it just all of a sudden there came a day where we just had to stop living. And we've never seen that before in this country. We've never been to this. All right, yes. Did everything shut down for a couple of days after 9/11? Absolutely. Everything shut down. Nothing was moving. There was no business. There was no everyday life. It stopped cold. But little by little, it came back. Day after day, we dug out, and it got a little better. And then everything came back 10 days later, and we started, going through it. And it wasn't easy getting through that first holiday season, the whole thing, but we, step by step. This is cloaked in so much uncertainty. This is unfolding where every day it's, all right, now deal with this. Okay, now deal with this. And every business has its own particular unknowns as it starts to deal with this. And like I said, no business won't be impacted. Our business is sports. Our business is radio. We'll be impacted on every level of that. Now, for me, I'm in a different place now than I've been in my career, where I'm in a little different place now at this stage. But still, it's going to impact everybody. The kids who are breaking into the station, it's going to impact them. The guys who are just getting their first show is going to impact them. The salesman who just started there, it's going to impact them tremendously. Business is going to be hard. The advertisers, tough time for advertisers, tough time for sales. The economy's slowing down. Nobody's buying products. Stores are closed. We're not doing business. We're not traveling. Look at the airlines. Look at the hotels. Look at the cruise liners. Look at the resorts. As we head towards the summer, what's going to be open, what's not going to be open, what is going to be available, what's not going to be available. So this is, as we said, a time where we're living with an uncertainty. We're living with and on top of that, everyone's trying to stay healthy, not knowing if the next day someone they know or love or themselves is going to get floored by this virus. All we can do is get up, put one foot in front of the other, and do the best we can each day. And just be more than civil to each other. Just be more helpful and more caring. I guess that's all you can really do. It's a strange, strange time. There's no handbook for this one. They're making this up as they go along. You can see it. You can see the people who go up there to explain things. They are making it up as they go along. But it's not their fault. There's no playbook for this one. There's no handbook. This is one they didn't see coming. Now, the next time, yeah, there'll be a handbook for this. But this time, there isn't one. And I think it's the uncertainty that is so hard to digest. I think it's the uncertainty that is making it so tough for Wall Street. There's no beginning, there's no end. You don't know when it's going to start, you don't know when it's going to finish. Is it going to be 2 weeks? All right, we can live with that. Is it going to be 3 weeks? All right, I can tolerate that. Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? We're going into a recession. I think we're going into more than a recession. You don't like to use a word that goes past recession, but boy, oh boy, nothing is moving. These businesses are closed. Restaurants are closed. The mall's closed. And the world of entertainment, Broadway, is closed. Sports is closed. It's going to be amazing. The impact on this is going to be so unbelievable. You don't want to be a doomsayer, but this is going to take a while to come out of. This is going to be easy. We really are digging a hole here. There's no question. But the first thing is we got to get past the health part of it. That's the most important thing because you can't do anything without that. So that's the first part. We got to get past the idea of the virus. And they're not going to come up with a drug that's going to work for a long time. I mean, they're trying and they're working at record speed, but it's still going to take a while. They started a trial today. If that trial works, the results of it won't be known for a year. And they just injected the first person today. 1 year. Amazing. You don't realize how much you miss some of the stuff till it's gone, do you? I mean, you knew you'd miss. You're coming off the winter time. You're waiting for the good stuff to start again. Opening day, NCAA tournament, selection Sunday, et cetera, and then nothing. There's plenty of news to be had. Of course, the story that never dies. It's starting by the process of elimination. I told you all along, not that I had any information. I don't think anybody did, but I shouldn't, that Brady would go back to New England. I always thought he would. I thought if he did leave, Tennessee made sense. We know Tennessee is off the board. It made sense because they were good. They were ready to win. He and Vrabel were very close. He had the back there that could really make it easy for Tom on play action. It's not happening. I did hear from a couple of people that there was, at least on Tom's part, and I don't know how. Listen, I don't have a relationship with Tom Brady, so I can't answer this. But people I know who do told me they thought that Tom was really taking a serious look at San Francisco at one point. That's off the table also. So I think he will go back. I can't see Tom going to a bad team. I really don't think he'll go to a team that isn't ready to win. So I would be very surprised if he did. I think he'd go back to New England instead of doing that. I really do. So I think he's going to go back to New England. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, especially now that Tennessee's off the board. I know people were interested in San Francisco, but that's off the board. So I don't buy some. I never bought the Calvary rumor. I told you that from the beginning. I never thought there was anything there that. I don't see Tom going to Tampa. I know that Tampa has come up in the last couple of days. I just don't see that. I don't think he's just going to go take a couple extra bucks. So what's he going to do? Make an extra $10 million or something? And he's going to worry about it. He's going to go to a place where he's got very little chance to win for $10 million bucks. I don't see that. He's got plenty of money. His family money is enormous because his wife makes more money than he does. So at least she did for a long time. I don't know if she still does, but she did for a long time. Money's not an issue. I think more than anything else, he's going to want to worry about culture and making sure that if he's going to keep being who he is and competing the way he competes, he's going to want people to follow along the same way. That would mean going back to where he's from, where he knows where things are going to be done a certain way. Otherwise, it would be an incredible culture shock for him if he didn't do that. So I still think that would be the case. So I think after all this talk and all this conversation and all these different stories that had him going here, there, and everywhere, I think he's probably going to wind up back in New England. And that's probably the right place to go. That's probably where he belongs. As he finishes this thing out, that's probably where he belongs. But the NFL is going to really have everything their own way because there's nothing else going on. So they are really going to be, they're going to be the only thing anybody can talk about. So yes, they're going to do things a little differently. Yes, they're going to have this process and have these destinations solved and decisions made without a lot of contact. It's a very different time right now. They will go forward with the draft, but in a very different way. So that will mean what it will mean is that the teams that do it better will do it better again. See, whatever parameters you put out there, the teams that know what they're doing will always know what they're doing. The teams that don't will always get hurt because they don't, no matter what the parameters are, they don't know how to do it anyway. The ones that are good at it are good at anything that is thrown at them. They're very rarely put in a position where they aren't ready. So whatever limitations are put on everybody, it's a positive for those that are good at it because they have a bigger advantage than they normally have. And that will be the case this year in free agency. That will be the case especially in the draft this year, where scouting is going to come up bigger than normal because there's going to be obviously less contact with players, less individual workouts, fewer visits, fewer workouts, fewer hands-on stuff, fewer meetings, fewer, in-person demonstrations. So from that standpoint, it will make you fall back on other ways to make decisions. And for one draft, they'll have to live with it that way. We'll see you tomorrow. Find something to keep you busy this night. I'm sure there's something out there. There's plenty of different channels, I can tell you that much. Although, soon enough, we'll all have nothing to watch. Hey, one thing is you can go back now, the way TV is now, you can go back and find something to watch, that's for sure. There's an episode of something you can watch sometime down the road. There's something there. You got like a show of some kind. So there's always something you can find. We'll be digging it out. That's the way this is going to work here for the next couple of weeks or months. Needed to get it to be about 70 every day. When it's about 70 every day, at least we'll have golf. 65, 70. Right now, it's still a little chilly. Steve Summers is next. We'll see you tomorrow.